So let's get into the reality of that real quick. Okay. Because we're being targeted, right? And you got to ask yourself why. If I go back to saying that people in general only know what they know. Okay, you don't know what you don't know. So by the end of this video, you're gonna actually understand what the disconnect is. All right. So what prompted me to get here was if you last video that I put out about the health conditions caused by stressful environments and relationships such as your job. You know, I use this graph, and I'm gonna get to this in a moment to explain probably what the smoking gun is for why prior or previous generations consider us younger generations lazy. All right, we're gonna get to that in a second. So let's look at what entitled mean, because they use that, they toss that word around a good bit. Hold, as far as hold the right to, they're saying that it means allowed, authorized, empowered, enabled, permitted, warranted. You know what I'm saying? Like when did it become a crime to feel permitted? When was empowerment wrong? All right, I'm gonna get you to understand by the end of this how that became a problem and what the real issue is. So let's go into some dates real quick so we can get an understanding of each other. Okay, so the prior generations, you gotta understand, they don't realize. Okay, millennials, we gotta accept that the previous generations don't understand the world today as we do, because we were born kind of in what it is already. It just kind of got a little faster, a little bit more convenient, but we were the first ones here when this massive shift happened. All right. Now, what the previous generations need to understand is that the same thing. We came up in this world that they had to adapt to. That is totally different from the world that when they were programmed, when they were younger. Yeah, I said programmed on purpose. All right. So look, let's get with these dates real quick. In 71, email came out. So prior to email coming out, you actually had to write a letter, put it in an envelope, stamp it, and send it through the mail, right? And then wait for them to get it, read it in their quote unquote busy life of the time, and reply. Or the next best thing was actually picking up the phone and dialing a number and calling and talking, or leaving a voicemail, and again waiting for someone to check the voicemail and respond. Everybody understands that. So in 1972, the word processor came out. It kind of made typing a little easier. Before that, everybody had a typewriter, and all that stuff that was high tech back then, right? So in 73, the first personal computers came out where you could actually accomplish all this stuff on a computer. You see? So these are the people that are calling you lazy, right? They just got access to the computer in 73. If they were born in 50, that means they were 23 years old before they even considered typing for like, could be, you know what I mean? All right. So in 83, you had the camcorder. The camcorder came out in 83. So if you were born in 80, right? You were born in 80, you were 3 years old when the camcorder came out. It was high tech. They grabbing VHS tapes, talking about, hold on, don't stop, don't put the tape in, gotta close it up. You fast forward and trying to hope that you got it aligned with a spot that you ain't recording over nothing. And then you like, okay, don't keep going. By the time you get it up, they done missed the whole memory. The memory done, it's over, it's never gonna happen again. They, and they still recorded over whatever it was they were trying. You know what I'm saying? That was high tech back then. They had, all right. So 84, the Apple Mac came out. 85, Microsoft Windows. 88, they got their cell phones. That means, prior to 88, not to say that you couldn't get it. It was probably just ridiculously expensive, and very few people, very few people had them. But prior to 88, let's say, you know, you driving down the road and had a thought, you had to like memorize that shit, write it down, or like stop and get a payphone, call somebody. Maybe you're on a side of town where you knew a friend, family, whatever. You knocking on their door, hey, can I use your phone real quick? That was your access before 88. Now, 1990, the World Wide Web came out. I'm sure it was out before then, like secretly, low key, whatever. But as far as the mainstream world, they got it in 1990, right? So if you were born in 80, shout out to you. Because when you were 10 years old, the internet hit the streets. So when you were in 5th grade, you literally had access to the whole world. At least the part of it that was online right away. All right. So look, now prior to what they had to do was they had to actually like travel, get on a plane and travel and actually go. I'm not saying that you totally replace the experience of being, let's say, in a foreign country by being able to Google it. But what I'm saying is you have a much better understanding when you can access people that's in the country, millions of pictures from what's going on and that you're interested in or the area or whatever, etc. Okay, versus they had to wait for hope that Time Life magazine wrote an article about it and got 5 pages of pictures and somebody's story telling them what they wanted them to hear. That's all they had back then. All right, they need to respect that. We need to understand that. That's how we relate to each other. Now, in 1994, PDAs came out. And in 95, they got their first DVDs. So what does all that mean? What does that whole list mean, Pasha? What it means is that we can safely say prior to 95, everything took time. If you wanted to meet, if you wanted to get to know a chick or ladies, you wanted to get to know a man, then you had to go and like connect and then spend time with them and find out who they were. You know, hopefully they told you the truth, whatever. You know what I mean? Nowadays, we can just go Facebook, Instagram. Okay, we got 10 years of your profile right here. We kind of got an idea of at least who you claim to be. You see what I'm saying? All right. So prior to then, everything took time. Okay. You wanted to watch a movie, you had to rewind the VHS. You know, that took whatever. You had top load, push forward load, whatever. You had to put the VHS in. You had to rewind it. Oh, you went too far. You had to go back. Whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? DVDs, number 2. We're watching the movie. Let's go. All right. So now here goes some dates for us to put things in perspective. Now, see, they were introduced to that and or they were born at certain times when this stuff was happening out. So this is all cutting edge to them, very, very limited. It didn't explode until like later on. You know what I'm saying? So, all right. Now for us in 2001, here goes some dates for us. 2001, we had GPS introduced. For the first time, you didn't have to actually memorize everywhere you wanted to go. You could just punch it in and get directions on the fly. You know what I mean? They had to take their time and memorize and do all this stuff about directions and all this good stuff. Skype came out in 2003. I got the dates here. TiVo in 2004. Facebook came out in 2004. Happy 15th anniversary to Facebook, right? YouTube came out in 2005. Shout out YouTube. Where would the world be without YouTube? Now, the Apple iPhone came out in 2007. I'm not saying that you didn't have this access prior to then, but in 2007, everybody that had a smartphone had the whole world in the palm of their hands. They didn't have to go to the library. They didn't need a library card. They didn't have to travel around the world. They could make a phone call. Excuse me. You could send an email. You could do a text message, whatever. Then it came with 1.6. At that time, you had 1.6 million apps to make you more productive. So if you wanted to be bullshitting, then you had apps that made you more productive at bullshitting. If you wanted to be about your business, then you had apps to be more productive handling your business. 1.6 million apps to make you more productive in whatever it was you were doing. In 2012, Google Drive came out. That alone was a $131 billion economic impact, because now you could just upload a file to a cloud of some, and you didn't have to email it, you didn't have to print it out, you didn't have to mail it, you didn't have to fax it, it was just there, and they could pull it down, and you kind of didn't have to worry about how large it was. You could just put it in, and they could get it on the other end. They could take it down when they wanted to. Now, then 2013, you kind of had like this thing that you want to call mainstream. This is why they targeting you, right? Because now you had 2013, you had a mainstream collaboration tools and apps so that people could work together faster, smarter, you know what I mean? Not harder, but smarter. And then by 2015, the world then became a place where people are actually paying for a desk that they can stand up and type on their computer. So you got people in offices saying, I sit down too much, so long, all the time, that I need to spend some money for a desk that goes up and down so I can actually stand up and work, while the people that's making all the money for the companies in a lot of cases kind of don't even have the luxury of sitting down sometimes. That's where the world's at right now. Why? Because this graph here is what explains a lot. So why do they call you lazy? You know what I mean? One, let's go back to this. If you had the whole world, they don't understand, they don't grab, they get it because they pay their cell phone bill, they use it, they call, they do, but they don't get it that this is all we know. This is how we grew up. When you got the whole world literally in the palm of your hand, why wouldn't you feel permitted to learn about whatever you want to know? Why don't you feel enabled to find the information? What do you mean we shouldn't feel empowered? Of course, we're authorized. We've made our phone bill payment. We can look up anything we want right now. We can go anywhere on the earth right now. And of course, we feel allowed, because this is the technology that we had access to since we were little. Okay? No, we don't have the same the work ethic that y'all had, because everything took time back then. We're used to pushing the button. We got a microwave. Food is done. I'm not saying microwave is good for you, but boop, 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 zap, done. Want to talk to somebody? They ain't answer the phone. Text message. That's a communication. We sent it. It's done. We're waiting on them to reply now. Balls in their court. What else? You know what I'm saying? All this stuff we got is instantaneous. So no, we don't have patience to develop your work ethic, because we get so much more done in the same amount of time that y'all took. And I'm not saying that y'all didn't have to like maybe do machinery or whatever while we got like some more automation or something, whatever. I'm not saying that. What I'm getting at is this graph right here. This is what it's about right here. Because what happened is in 79, okay, there was a fork in the road, like I mentioned in the last video, where wages and compensation kind of flatlined while productivity still skyrocketed. Now, this graph stops at the year 2009, which illustrates that from 79 to 2009, productivity was up 80% versus wages and compensation being up 7 to 8%. Now, that itself was 10 years ago, so we could probably say easily its productivity is probably up 100, 120, 140, maybe 150% compared to 79 right now in general. So here's what you got to ask yourself, previous generations with so much judgment. We're doing, now I understand it may not be the same amount of physicality. I understand that we got a little bit more technology, but let's look at when you get those numbers from the reports at the end of the year that show what you gross and net the company. Let's talk that. Let's talk numbers, right? Since y'all companies are so numbers driven. What happened is when we look, see, because we used to this stuff. We used to these scores now. You know what I mean? We grew up playing Mario Brothers. We grew up where you could beat the whole game in a couple hours. You see what I'm saying? We grew up looking for scoreboards, scores. Y'all didn't have that. Y'all was playing Monopoly and board games. That's all y'all had access to. Pong, boop, boop, boop. You know what I'm saying? So look, we like numbers, but here's what happened. We know how to think about that. That's different than the way y'all approach it. So the reality of this graph says it says what it says, but let me tell you what I read in this also. What I read in this graph is that right now, people prior to 79, you were getting, let's just call whatever it was fairly compensated for what you produced. We'll just label it like that to keep the equation simple. Now that productivity is going up 100, 120, 150%, right? We're now making half. We're being compensated half of what you got, maybe a third of what you got based on what you produced. Let me say that again. This graph illustrates that right now, when compared to pre-79, the average employee is being compensated 50% to a third of what you were compensated in respect to what you were making at the time prior to 79, based on what you produced. Now, how do you feel if you were to go? How would you feel previous generations if you were to go back to when, you know, your days of glory or whatever you want to call it, and then take that middle picture, what you were making, and cut it in half or in a third, and still know that you're producing all the stuff that you produced back then? How would you react to that? And I guarantee you, if you go back and you're completely honest with yourself, the reactions that you're saying you would have, the feeling that you say you would have about the companies, the country, everything is exactly what you're witnessing in these younger generations right now. How dare you judge us because you don't understand us or the modern world? We're case driven. Cause driven. Okay? But the businesses now are just like numbers. We want more, we want more, we want productivity up, up, up. So they never tell us. They don't tell us. They're not telling you what you get if you hit this numbers, because they're not giving us nothing now. You know what I'm saying? Back then, back in y'all day, prior generations, previous generations, older people, y'all knew y'all could look forward to having a pension. Y'all could retire. Y'all could take care of your family. Matter of fact, y'all school systems taught us this fantasy. It's a fantasy to us. Y'all lived it. It's a fantasy to us. Y'all could go and get one job. The man could go out and work an average job. He doesn't have to be LeBron James. The average person could go out and get a job that would take care and provide for the whole family, the mortgage, the car, the kids, the dog. That's not real right now. So what happens is everything y'all taught us in school was, we get to a certain point where we realize that's bullshit. That's not today. That's not real right now. So the companies aren't telling us what we get when we keep producing more and more and more, because they're not giving us nothing. They're taking it all. And like I said, it's the equivalent of 50 to 75% less than what you guys got when you were doing the same thing at the same time in your lives. So stop calling us lazy. Stop feeling we entitled, because technically we're supposed to feel entitled, because that means based on what we know we have access to, how we grow up, how we use technology, we are authorized to learn. You got people that's mad at you because they were so brainwashed and weak at the time that they went and got to school for 4, 5, 6, 8 years, went and paid somebody 10, 20, 30,000, $40,000 a year for 8 years so they can get a certificate to tell them that they know what somebody told them for 8 years, that they didn't even cross-reference was true or not. They could just repeat it and pass the test. Now, see, that used to mean something back in the 50s, but everybody know that education is just another product now that they're actually trying to get more productivity like every other industry. So if you bought into it, you bought into the sales pitch, because right now you can go on YouTube and in your free time, in a tenth of the time it took that person that spent $100,000 on a piece of paper, you can learn the same thing that they know. Literally, the only difference is you don't got a little piece of paper and some that you can use as a credential and have some title that say that you know it. So of course they're looking at you like, how dare you feel permitted to do this job that I can do because I spent $100,000 and spent 8 years trying to get this position. I'm in debt and I need this job to pay off my debt over 20 years. That's what a student loan did to you. It made you mad that we can access the same information for free. You know, how dare you? How dare they're telling us, this is what it translates to us, y'all guys, you older generations are telling us, how dare you feel empowered to know more for less, for free? You didn't put the time in we put in, because we ain't got to. Everything before the DVD took time. Everything before the microwave took time. This is a different world. We can get the same distance in less time. It's like you guys are saying, we pull up next to y'all like, beep, beep, beep. Yo, I know you walking across town, get in, I give you a ride. You're like, with your little proud mother, with your little proud self, no, I'm going to walk. This is how we did it. This is how my father did it. This is how my father before him did it. I'm going to walk too. You in a car, you're riding, you're lazy. How dare you use 4 wheels and horsepower and technology to traverse the landscape? I mean, that's exactly what it sounds like, people. Okay? So what y'all need to do is understand that the world has changed. We are much more efficient. And y'all need to respect that, because once y'all learn how to utilize us properly, you guys can get more done and actually see that you guys can actually invest in the future generations more than some plus 7 or 8%, while y'all getting 128%. Y'all going to start a riot. Like, you don't understand. The countries around the world are feeling this. And then the people's energy translates into the environment around them. And we already talked about, just in the last video, how that affects their health. It's only a matter of time for the people catch on to this, and then it's that nightmare that you guys have been trying to hide for a minute. So what would be wise is to invest in the future generation. Stop robbing them. You're robbing Peter to pay your Pauls. And go ahead and invest in these younger people and give them a fair shot. The reality is, they're not lazy. They just and they may not know to articulate it like this, but they know something is wrong, because it's not what y'all taught us. It's not you can go to work and support your family. That's not what it is right now. It's not you can work for 30 years, because by the time you work for 30 years, you got mental health issues, you got physical health issues, because check out the last video, you'll understand. So it's a setup. They don't understand what's wrong, but they smart enough to know that something's wrong, and then y'all get mad at them when they don't want to play your game because they're a little smarter than that. So no, millennials aren't lazy. You guys just gotta know the definition of entitled. Pasha Pablo, YNet7. Thank you for tuning. The replay.